Growing up, I always believed that family was everything. My name is Emma, and I'm 34 years old, working as a financial analyst in Denver. For most of my life, I thought I was just the quiet one in our family, the responsible daughter who somehow never quite fit into their vibrant social world. My younger sister, Sophia, was always the shining star, the one who could light up any room she walked into while I stayed in the shadows, working hard and trying to earn my place at the family table. That Christmas morning changed everything. I remember waking up to fresh snow falling outside my apartment window, the kind of peaceful scene that should have filled me with holiday joy. Instead, I felt that familiar ache of loneliness as I read my mother's text message for the third time. Emma, sweetheart, the roads are terrible with this blizzard. Christmas dinner is canceled. Everyone's staying home for safety. We'll celebrate when the weather clears. Love you. I understood completely. Colorado winters could be treacherous, and I'd rather have my family safe than risk dangerous driving conditions. So I settled in for a quiet day alone, making myself hot cocoa with extra marshmallows and queuing up my favorite holiday movies. I tried to make the best of it. Really, I did. I lit some cinnamon candles, wrapped myself in the cozy blanket my grandmother had made me years ago, and even baked cookies just to fill the apartment with that warm, festive smell. Around 3 in the afternoon, I was scrolling through social media, smiling at friends' holiday posts, when my heart suddenly stopped. There on my screen was a photo that would shatter every illusion I'd held about my family. My cousin Jessica had posted a picture with the caption, "Perfect family Christmas at Sophia's new place. So grateful for these precious moments together." The photo showed my entire family gathered around my sister's dining table. My mother was there in her favorite red sweater, the one she always wore for special occasions. My father was carving a golden turkey while my aunts and uncles raised glasses of wine and a toast. Even my elderly grandmother was there, beaming from her seat at the head of the table. Through the windows behind them, I could see clear blue skies and sunshine reflecting off dry pavement. There was no blizzard. There had never been a blizzard. My hands trembled as I scrolled through more photos. Each one felt like another knife to my heart. There was Sophia, radiant in a designer dress, accepting compliments on her beautifully decorated home. My little nieces and nephews were tearing into presents under an enormous tree. My mother was serving her famous pecan pie, the one she taught me to make when I was 12, telling me it would be our special tradition to pass down through generations. Everyone looked so happy, so complete, as if there wasn't a single person missing from their perfect family portrait. The room seemed to spin around me as the full weight of their deception crashed down. This wasn't some last-minute change of plans or innocent miscommunication. This was deliberate, calculated. They had all coordinated this lie, every single one of them, to ensure I would spend Christmas alone while they celebrated together. The worst part was how easily I had believed them, how quickly I had accepted their excuse without question, because I trusted them, because they were my family. I thought back to all the other times plans had mysteriously fallen through at the last minute. The spontaneous barbecue at my aunt's house that I'd only learned about through Facebook photos the next day. The surprise birthday party for my grandmother that somehow I was never told about until after the fact. The family reunion that was supposedly canceled due to scheduling conflicts, only for me to discover later that everyone except me had attended. How many times had they done this? How long had I been the only one not in on the secret? The next morning, my phone rang with my mother's special ringtone, the one I'd programmed with her favorite song. For a moment, I considered not answering, but 34 years of conditioning won out. "Hi, sweetie. I hope you had a nice, quiet Christmas. We all missed you so much. Such a shame about that weather." Her voice was bright and cheerful, without even a hint of guilt. She was acting, I realized. She'd been acting for years, and I'd been too naive to see it. "Really?" I managed to keep my voice steady, though my free hand was clenched so tightly my nails dug into my palm. Because Jessica's photos show that everyone had a wonderful time at Sophia's house yesterday. In the sunshine, without a cloud in the sky. The silence that followed was deafening. I could picture her face perfectly, that expression she got when she'd been caught but was already formulating her next move, like a chess player who'd lost a piece but refused to concede the game. "Oh, well," she finally stammered, and I could hear the gears turning as she searched for the right lie. It was very last minute. Sophia called and said the weather had cleared on her side of town, and she'd already prepared everything. So we thought just family would gather quickly. You know how you are at parties, always so serious and quiet. We didn't want to bother you when you'd already settled in for the day. "You're saying you decided I wouldn't want to come to Christmas dinner with my own family?" My voice was dangerously quiet now, The kind of calm that comes before a storm. You made that decision for me? Don't be dramatic, Emma. This is exactly what I mean. You always make everything so difficult, so tense. Sophia worked so hard to make everything perfect. We just wanted one peaceful holiday without any awkwardness. There it was. The familiar refrain I'd heard my whole life. I was too serious, too sensitive, too difficult. Sophia was perfect, and I was the problem that needed to be managed. How many times? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. How many other family gatherings have you lied to me about? Another long pause, and when she spoke again, her tone had shifted from defensive to offensive. Emma, you're being paranoid and frankly, a bit hysterical. Maybe you should talk to someone about these trust issues you're developing. This victim complex isn't healthy. I actually laughed at that. A bitter sound that surprised us both. Trust issues? You deliberately lied to me to exclude me from Christmas, and I'm the one with issues? But she was already moving into her familiar pattern of gaslighting. We love you, Emma, but sometimes love means making hard choices. You've always been different from the rest of us. We were trying to spare your feelings, to let you have the quiet holiday you prefer. I never said I preferred being alone on Christmas. I shot back, years of suppressed frustration finally breaking through. You decided that for me, just like you've decided everything else. Like when you told me not to pursue photography because it wasn't practical. Like when you convinced me to turn down that job offer in New York because family should stay close. Like every single time you've chosen Sophia over me. Oh, here we go again. My mother sighed dramatically. Always comparing yourself to your sister. This jealousy is really unattractive, Emma. Maybe if you put half as much energy into being pleasant as you do into keeping score, you'd be invited to more things. The cruelty of her words hit me like a physical blow. This was my mother, the woman who was supposed to love me unconditionally, telling me I was unworthy of being included in my own family. I'm done, I said quietly. I'm done trying to earn a place at a table that was never set for me. Don't be ridiculous. You're being overly emotional. Call me when you're ready to apologize and we can move past this little tantrum. The line went dead. She'd hung up on me, just like that, as if I was a telemarketer rather than her daughter. I sat in my living room, still wearing yesterday's pajamas, as 34 years of memories suddenly shifted into sharp focus. Every slight, every dismissal, every time I'd been made to feel less than, it all made sense now. I wasn't the problem daughter who couldn't fit in. I was the scapegoat in a family system that needed someone to blame, someone to exclude, someone to feel superior to. The more I thought about it, the clearer the pattern became. When I graduated summa cum laude with my finance degree, working 2 jobs to pay for school, my parents barely acknowledged it. They were too busy celebrating Sophia dropping out of college to become a wellness coach. When I helped them refinance their mortgage, saving them thousands of dollars, they thanked me briefly before spending the next hour gushing about Sophia's new meditation studio. Every achievement of mine was minimized, while every whim of Sophia's was celebrated. I remember the exact moment I should have seen the truth. It was 3 years ago when my father needed knee replacement surgery. I took 3 weeks off work, using all my vacation time and then some unpaid leave to help care for him. I moved back home temporarily, sleeping on the couch so I could help him at night. I managed his medications, drove him to every physical therapy appointment, cooked every meal, and even helped him with basic tasks he couldn't manage alone. Sophia visited once. She stayed for exactly 45 minutes, took a selfie with Dad for her Instagram, talked about how exhausted she was from her hot yoga teacher training, and left with a promise to send healing energy. Yet somehow, when family friends asked about his recovery, my parents told everyone how amazing Sophia had been, how she'd really stepped up during their time of need. When I heard my mother on the phone telling her sister that I'd been around some but not really helpful, while Sophia had been their rock, I felt something inside me crack. But I'd pushed it down like I always did. I told myself they were stressed, that they didn't mean it, that family was complicated, but love was unconditional. I made excuse after excuse for their behavior, becoming an expert at gaslighting myself before they even had to. I convinced myself that if I just tried harder, gave more, complained less, eventually they would see me. Eventually, I would earn my place. The Christmas lie was just the final piece of evidence in a case I'd been refusing to prosecute for decades. They didn't love me less because I wasn't good enough. They needed me to be less so that Sophia could be more. They needed a black sheep to make their golden child shine brighter, and I had played my role perfectly. desperately trying to change a script that had been written before I was old enough to read. What happened next would change everything. As I sat processing this revelation, my phone buzzed with text after text from family members. Word had already spread that I was causing drama and ruining Sophia's perfect Christmas. The family machine was mobilizing to put me back in my place, to make me the villain of a story where I was actually the victim. But something had shifted inside me during that phone call with my mother. For the first time in my life, I wasn't going to apologize for their cruelty. I wasn't going to accept their version of reality. I was done being their scapegoat, and I was about to show them exactly what happened when they pushed the quiet daughter too far. I spent the rest of that day doing something I'd never done before, prioritizing my own truth over their comfort. I opened my laptop and began writing an email to every member of my extended family. Not a rant or an emotional outburst, but a clear, factual account of what had happened. I attached screenshots of my mother's text about the canceled Christmas dinner, alongside the sunny photos from Jessica's social media posts. I wanted them all to see, in black and white, the lie they'd all participated in. I've been told my entire life that I'm too sensitive, too serious, too difficult, I wrote. But I'm starting to realize that my only crime was believing you all when you said family meant everything. A real family doesn't coordinate elaborate lies to exclude one member. A real family doesn't gaslight someone for having feelings about being deliberately hurt. I'm not asking for apologies or explanations. I'm simply done pretending this behavior is acceptable. The responses came flooding in within minutes. My Aunt Patricia claimed it was all a misunderstanding, that they'd tried to call me but couldn't get through. A lie easily disproven by my phone records. Uncle Michael said I was overreacting and should consider therapy for my anger issues. Cousin Jessica, whose posts had revealed the truth, quickly deleted all the Christmas photos and sent me a private message accusing me of trying to destroy the family. But it was Sophia's response that really showed me who she was beneath the golden child facade. Her email was a masterpiece of manipulation, dripping with false concern and backhanded insults. Emma, I'm so worried about you. This kind of outburst isn't like you at all. I know you've always struggled with feeling included, but lashing out at everyone who loves you isn't the answer. I specifically asked Mom not to invite you because I knew you'd be uncomfortable with all the socializing and attention. I was trying to protect you from feeling awkward, like you always do at family gatherings. Maybe instead of attacking us, you should think about why you always feel like an outsider. The common denominator in all your difficult relationships is you. I read her words several times, almost admiring the skill with which she'd crafted them. Every sentence was designed to hurt while maintaining plausible deniability. She'd managed to call me unstable, antisocial, and the cause of my own exclusion while positioning herself as the caring sister just looking out for my well-being. It was exactly the kind of response I should have expected from someone who'd been enabled and elevated her entire life at my expense. My parents' official response came that evening, not in a personal call or email, but through a family group message that made their priorities crystal clear. We're disappointed that Emma has chosen to air private family matters in such a public way. This kind of behavior is exactly why we sometimes have to make difficult decisions about family gatherings. We love all our children, but we won't tolerate disrespect and drama. Anyone who continues to engage with these false accusations will be considered part of the problem. Let's all move forward and focus on the positive. Sophia is hosting New Year's Eve, and everyone is welcome. Everyone who can behave appropriately, that is. The threat was clear. Fall in line or face exclusion. Choose their narrative or lose your place in the family. What they didn't realize was that they'd already shown me my place. Outside, always outside. And I was finally ready to accept it. But the universe wasn't done revealing truths to me yet. The biggest shock was still to come. And it would arrive in the form of an unexpected ally with information that would explain not just why they treated me differently, but why they needed to keep me at arm's length. A few days after Christmas, I received a LinkedIn message from Margaret Chen, who had handled my grandparents' estate planning before retiring. Emma, I've been following what's happening with your family on social media. There's something you need to know. Can we meet privately? This isn't something I can put in writing. My curiosity piqued. I agreed to meet her at a small coffee shop downtown the following day. Margaret looked nervous when I arrived, clutching a worn leather folder against her chest. We made small talk for a few minutes before she finally took a deep breath and slid the folder across to me. I've carried this guilt for 8 years, she began. Your grandfather made me promise to follow your father's lead as the executor, but I never felt right about it. After seeing how they're treating you now, I can't stay silent anymore. I opened the folder with trembling hands. Inside were bank statements, legal documents, and investment records. As I began to understand what I was looking at, the coffee shop seemed to fade away around me. According to these documents, my grandfather had left me a substantial inheritance, nearly $400,000 specifically earmarked for my education and future. Money I had never received. Money I had never even known existed. Your father was the trustee, Margaret explained, her voice heavy with regret. The funds were supposed to be transferred to you when you turned 25. Instead, he began making withdrawals almost immediately after your grandfather's death. Look at this page. She pointed to a series of transactions, each one clearly labeled. Business investment for Sophia, startup capital for Sophia's wellness center, property down payment for Sophia. Every penny of my inheritance had been systematically transferred to fund my sister's lifestyle. I stared at the papers, my mind struggling to process this level of betrayal. All those years, I'd worked multiple jobs to pay for college, accumulating student loans I was still paying off. All those times, I'd helped my parents with their bills, thinking they were struggling financially. All those moments, they'd praise Sophia for her entrepreneurial spirit while criticizing me for being too focused on money. They'd been using my money, my future, my grandfather's final gift to me. There's more, Margaret continued, pulling out another set of documents. Your grandfather also left 2 rental properties that were supposed to be divided equally between you and Sophia. Your parents sold both properties 6 years ago. The paperwork shows you signed off on the sales, but that signature... She trailed off, but I understood. The signature was forged. They'd stolen from me twice over. The power of attorney, I whispered, remembering the document they'd had me sign when I turned 18. They'd said it was just a formality in case of medical emergencies. I'd trusted them completely, never imagining they would use it to rob me of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Margaret reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I'm so sorry, Emma. I should have spoken up sooner, but I was afraid of the legal ramifications. Your father threatened to ruin my career if I ever said anything. But seeing what they're doing to you now, watching them try to paint you as unstable and difficult, I realize they're trying to discredit you before you discover the truth. They must have always feared this day would come. Everything suddenly clicked into place with horrible clarity. They hadn't just excluded me from family gatherings because they found me difficult or uncomfortable. They'd systematically pushed me away to hide their crime. Every insult, every slight, every manipulation had been designed to make me doubt myself, to make me grateful for whatever scraps of affection they threw my way, to ensure I would never question why Sophia had so much while I struggled. The cousin who'd posted those Christmas photos had unknowingly exposed more than just one lie. She'd pulled a thread that was unraveling years of calculated deception. They needed me to be the family failure, the difficult one, the outsider, because acknowledging my worth would mean acknowledging what they'd stolen from me. It was easier to gaslight me into believing I was the problem than to face their own moral bankruptcy. What do I do with this? I asked Margaret, my voice surprisingly steady despite the storm raging inside me. She had come prepared with an answer, sliding me a business card. This is my friend who specializes in estate fraud and financial crimes. Everything your family did is documented here. You have enough evidence not just for a civil suit, but for criminal charges. The question is, what do you want to do? I looked at the evidence spread before me, years of theft reduced to numbers and signatures on pages. What did I want? For years, all I'd wanted was to belong, to be loved, to have a place at the family table. But that dream had been an illusion, as fake as their Christmas weather emergency. Now, faced with the truth of who they really were, I wanted something else entirely. I wanted justice. I wanted accountability. Most of all, I wanted to finally stop being their victim and start being my own hero. I thanked Margaret and gathered the documents carefully. As I walked back to my car, my phone buzzed with another family group message. They were planning their New Year's Eve party, chatting happily as if nothing had happened. My mother had even added a passive-aggressive note about hoping everyone could make it this time, with a little smiling emoji that felt like a slap. They thought they'd won. They thought I'd eventually crawl back, apologize for making a scene, and resume my role as the family scapegoat. They had no idea that their carefully constructed house of cards was about to come crashing down. I spent the next week with Sarah Martinez, the attorney Margaret had recommended. Sarah specialized in financial crimes within families, and she'd seen cases like mine before. Financial abuse is more common than people think, she told me as we reviewed the documents. Families like yours rely on emotional manipulation to keep victims from seeking justice. They've conditioned you to prioritize their feelings over your rights. But what they did isn't just morally wrong. It's criminal fraud, forgery, and theft. Together, we built an airtight case. Every forged signature, every unauthorized transfer, every document that proved my father had violated his fiduciary duty as trustee. Sarah was thorough, methodical, and absolutely brilliant. We have two options, she explained. We can file a civil suit to recover the stolen funds plus damages, or we can pursue criminal charges. The evidence supports both. What they did could result in significant jail time. The decision should have been difficult. These were my parents, the people who had raised me. This was my sister, who I'd once played with as children. But as I thought about the 34 years of manipulation, the gaslighting, the deliberate cruelty of excluding me from Christmas while spending my money, the choice became clear. They hadn't shown me any mercy. They hadn't considered my feelings when they robbed me blind and then made me feel guilty for not having more to give. I want to give them one chance, I decided. One opportunity to make this right without destroying their lives completely. If they refuse, we file everything. Sarah nodded, understanding the balance between justice and compassion. We drafted a letter outlining what we knew, what we could prove, and what we demanded. Full restitution of the stolen inheritance plus interest, a written confession of their actions, and a legally binding agreement to cease all contact with me afterward. I requested a family meeting at my apartment, framing it as an opportunity to clear the air and move forward. They agreed eagerly, probably thinking they'd finally worn me down. I could picture them preparing their speeches about family forgiveness and moving past petty grievances. They had no idea they were walking into an intervention of their own making. The morning of the meeting, I arranged everything carefully. 3 folders on my dining room table, one for each of them. Inside each folder was a copy of the evidence, the legal documents, and the letter from my attorney. I dressed professionally as if for a business meeting rather than a family confrontation. This wasn't about emotion anymore. This was about consequences. They arrived together, a united front against the difficult daughter. My mother wore her disappointed face, the one she'd perfected over years of making me feel like a failure. My father looked stern and impatient, clearly wanting to get this over with so they could return to their comfortable life. Sophia floated in behind them, all flowing scarves and therapeutic crystals, ready to offer her wisdom about healing and letting go of negativity. Before anyone speaks, I said calmly, I need you to read what's in these folders. I slid one across to each of them. Everything else can wait until you understand what this meeting is really about. The transformation was instant and dramatic. My father's face went from irritated to ash gray as he recognized the bank statements. My mother's hands began to shake as she saw her own signature on documents approving the theft of my inheritance. Sophia's ethereal calm shattered as she realized the source of her success was about to be exposed. How did you get these? My father demanded, his voice cracking. These are confidential documents. You had no right. I had no right? I interrupted, my voice deadly calm. You stole $400,000 from me. You forged my signature. You used a power of attorney I signed as a teenager to commit fraud. And you want to talk to me about rights? My mother tried her usual manipulation tactics, tears streaming down her face. Emma, sweetheart, you don't understand. We were protecting you. You were so young, so irresponsible with money. We invested it for your future. You invested it in Sophia, I corrected. Every penny went to her businesses, her properties, her dreams. While I worked 60-hour weeks to pay off student loans, you were spending my inheritance on her yoga retreats and meditation studios. Sophia, for once, seemed to have no words. She stared at the evidence of her parents' crimes, the proof that her entire lifestyle had been built on stolen money. Her money. I didn't know, she finally whispered, but her eyes wouldn't meet mine. We both knew that was a lie. She might not have known the details, but she'd never questioned where her endless funding came from while her sister struggled. Here's what's going to happen, I continued, channeling every bit of professional composure I'd learned in my career. You have 2 choices. Sign the confession, arrange for full restitution plus interest, and we handle this privately. Or refuse, and I file criminal charges Monday morning. Financial fraud, forgery, breach of fiduciary duty. My attorney says you're looking at significant prison time. The room exploded into chaos. My father raged about ungrateful children and family loyalty. My mother sobbed about how I was destroying everything. Sophia accused me of being jealous and vindictive, claiming I was trying to punish them for loving her more. Their reactions told me everything I needed to know. Even faced with evidence of their crimes, they were still trying to make me the villain. "You always were a selfish little bitch," my father snarled, his mask finally slipping completely. "We gave you everything, and this is how you repay us?" "You gave me nothing," I replied quietly. "You took everything that was mine and gave it to her. You excluded me, belittled me, and gaslit me for years to cover up your theft. And you want to talk about selfishness?" My mother tried one last manipulation. "Think about what this will do to the family. Everyone will know. The shame, the scandal, is that really what you want? To destroy your own family over money?" "You destroyed this family the day you decided I was worth less than my inheritance," I responded. "You destroyed it every time you lied to me, excluded me, made me feel like I wasn't good enough. All I'm doing is holding you accountable for your choices." They left without signing anything, of course. My father slammed the door so hard my windows rattled. My mother's sobs echoed down the hallway. Sophia paused at the door, looking back at me with something that might have been regret, but was probably just calculation. "You could have had everything," she said softly. "All you had to do was know your place." "I do know my place," I replied. "It's standing up for myself instead of kneeling for your approval." She left without another word, and I knew I'd never see any of them again outside a courtroom. The next few months were a whirlwind of legal proceedings and family drama. As promised, I filed charges the Monday after our meeting. By Tuesday afternoon, the police were at their doors with warrants. The local news picked up the story. Prominent local family charged with inheritance fraud. The mugshots of my parents being arrested made the evening news. Sophia's wellness center was seized as an asset purchased with stolen funds. The extended family rallied around them at first, flooding my phone with messages about forgiveness and not airing dirty laundry. But as the evidence became public record through court filings, their support wavered. It's hard to defend someone when the proof of their crimes is documented in black and white. Several relatives reached out privately to apologize, admitting they'd always sensed something was wrong with how I was treated, but hadn't wanted to get involved. My parents eventually took a plea deal, avoiding jail time but agreeing to full restitution and probation. The court ordered them to pay back everything they'd stolen, plus interest and damages, nearly $600,000 when all was said and done. They had to sell their house, liquidate their retirement accounts, and Sophia had to give up her wellness center and the property it sat on. The golden child was finally learning what it felt like to struggle financially, though she still had parents who would sacrifice everything for her. Throughout the legal proceedings, they never once acknowledged their wrongdoing. Every court appearance, they glared at me with pure hatred, as if I was the one who had betrayed them. Even when the judge read out their crimes in detail, they maintained that they'd done nothing wrong, that they were just trying to protect family assets from an irresponsible daughter. The irresponsible daughter who had graduated with honors, built a successful career, and managed to support herself despite their theft. The money, when it finally came through, felt strange in my bank account. It wasn't just dollars and cents, it was validation. Proof that I hadn't been crazy or too sensitive. Evidence that my grandfather had loved me equally, had wanted to provide for my future just as much as Sophia's. I paid off my student loans immediately, finally free from that burden years after I should have been. I invested wisely, something they'd claimed I'd be incapable of doing. And I started therapy to process the decades of emotional abuse that had accompanied the financial theft. My therapist helped me understand the dynamics I'd been trapped in. Scapegoating is a powerful family system, she explained. Everyone benefits from having someone to blame except the scapegoat. Your parents needed you to be less than Sophia to justify their favoritism. Sophia needed you to be the difficult one to maintain her special status. The extended family needed you to be the problem so they didn't have to confront uncomfortable truths about the people they loved. Understanding helped, but healing took time. I had to grieve not just the family I'd lost, but the family I'd never actually had. The parents who loved me unconditionally existed only in my imagination. The sister who might have been my friend had been raised to see me as competition and less than human. The extended family who claimed to care had watched me struggle for years while knowing something was wrong and choosing to stay silent. But in losing my biological family, I found something precious. Myself. For the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to earn anyone's approval or prove my worth. I made decisions based on what I wanted, not what would make them finally love me. I pursued photography, the passion I'd abandoned because they'd called it impractical. I traveled to places I'd always dreamed of seeing but never could afford. I built friendships with people who valued me for who I was, not for how I made them feel about themselves. A year after that devastating Christmas, I was living in Seattle, working as a financial analyst by day and pursuing photography in my free time. My apartment was filled with light and plants and artwork that made me smile. I'd joined a hiking group where I'd met genuine friends who invited me to things because they actually wanted me there, not out of obligation or manipulation. My therapist had helped me recognize the red flags I'd been trained to ignore, and I was slowly learning to trust my own instincts again. I still sometimes wondered what my family told people about me. In their version of events, I was probably the ungrateful daughter who destroyed the family over money, the unstable one who couldn't let go of imagined slights, the jealous sister who couldn't stand to see others succeed. I'd accepted that I couldn't control their narrative, only my own truth. And my truth was that I'd survived systematic abuse, theft, and gaslighting with my integrity intact. I'd chosen justice over enabling. I picked myself instead of remaining their convenient victim. Margaret, the woman who'd given me the evidence, stayed in touch. She sent me a message on the anniversary of our coffee shop meeting. "Your grandfather would be so proud of the courage you showed. He always said you had a spine of steel under that quiet exterior." He was right. It made me cry, but they were healing tears. Someone had seen me, really seen me, even when my own parents couldn't. The last I heard through the grapevine, my parents had moved to a small apartment across town, living on Social Security and whatever Sophia could contribute from her new job as a receptionist at a dental office. The golden child who'd never had to work for anything was learning what the rest of us already knew: that life without a trust fund required actual effort. There was some poetic justice in that, though I tried not to dwell on it. Living well, my therapist reminded me, really was the best revenge. Sometimes, usually around the holidays, I'd feel a pang of something that might have been longing. Not for them exactly, but for the idea of family, for belonging somewhere. But then I'd look around at the life I'd built, the friends who genuinely cared about me, the career I'd advanced without anyone else's money, and the creative passions I was finally free to pursue. I'd remember that family isn't just about blood. It's about the people who show up for you honestly, who celebrate your successes without resentment, who include you because they want you there. That Christmas revelation had shattered my world, but from those broken pieces, I'd built something infinitely better. Something real. Something mine. The girl who'd spent 34 years begging for a seat at a table that was never set for her had finally learned to build her own table, surrounded by people who didn't need her to be less so they could feel like more. And that $400,000 inheritance my grandfather had left me, it turned out to be worth so much more than money. It had bought me my freedom, validated my worth, and proven that someone in my family had loved me equally all along. It just took an elaborate Christmas lie and a forensic financial investigation to finally receive that gift. Sometimes the best presents come in the most unexpected packages, wrapped in pain but containing liberation. Looking back now, I'm almost grateful for that lonely Christmas and the Instagram post that exposed their deception. Without it, I might have spent my entire life accepting crumbs and calling them a feast. I might have kept trying to earn love that was never available, no matter how much I gave or how hard I tried. That moment of devastating clarity had set me free in ways I was still discovering. The truth really does set you free, even when that truth breaks your heart first. And sometimes the family you lose is worth less than the self you find. That's the gift they accidentally gave me that Christmas. Not an invitation to their table, but the revelation that I didn't need it. I could create my own celebrations filled with people who actually wanted me there. And that, it turned out, was the greatest gift of all.